Please, just make her stop. Victoria Sterling's voice cracked as she stood in the marble hallway of her Manhattan penthouse watching the 14th nanny in 19 months grab her coat and walk out the door. Behind her, 2-year-old Lily screamed a raw, desperate sound that had become the soundtrack of their lives. The agency called 20 minutes later. We're closing your file, Mrs. Sterling. Translation blacklisted. Her daughter was 2 years old and already unhireable. Before we continue this story, tell me something. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it in your city? I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you're someone who values stories that touch the heart, we invite you to support us, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. Together, we can bring hope to those who need it most. Victoria Sterling had built her entire life on control. At 35, she was one of the youngest managing directors at Goldman Sachs. She had closed deals that made grown men weep. She had stared down billionaires across boardroom tables and never blinked. But standing in her $8 million penthouse on the Upper East Side listening to her daughter scream herself hoarse for the 3rd hour straight, Victoria Sterling felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood. Complete and utter helplessness. James appeared in the bedroom doorway, his tie already loosened, his face gray with exhaustion. That was Margaret on the phone. Victoria didn't turn around. She knew what was coming. She's not coming back. None of them are coming back. The agency said they're removing us from their roster. Victoria's hands trembled as she buttoned her silk blouse. Removing us. Like we're defective merchandise they can't sell. Don't say it like that. Why not? Victoria spun to face him. It's true, isn't it, 14 nannies, James? 14 women with degrees and certifications and decades of experience. All of them quit because our daughter is impossible. She's not impossible. She's just different. Different. Victoria laughed bitterly. That's what Dr. Patterson said before she charged us $8,000 and told us Lily was simply strong-willed. That's what the sleep consultant said before she walked out after 2 nights. Different. High needs. Spirited. Those are just polite words for a child nobody can handle. Downstairs, Lily's screaming reached a new pitch. Raw. Desperate. The sound of a small animal caught in a trap. James closed his eyes and pressed his palm against his forehead. I have the Tokyo call in an hour. I can't reschedule again. They're already talking about moving the entire deal to Henderson, and I have the Morrison deposition at 9. So what do? Lock her in her room and hope she exhausts herself before the neighbors call the police? That's not funny. I'm not joking, James. Victoria's voice broke. She pressed her hand against her mouth, fighting back something that wanted to become a sob. I don't know what to do anymore. I have tried everything. We have tried everything, and nothing works. James stepped toward her, reaching for her shoulder. She moved away. Don't. Just don't. They stood in silence, 2 strangers in matching wedding bands listening to their daughter scream. Victoria, maybe we should consider other options. What options? We've tried every therapist in Manhattan, every specialist, every program. James hesitated. His jaw tightened. There are facilities. Residential programs for children with behavioral challenges. It wouldn't be permanent. Just until she's older. More manageable. Victoria went very still. Are you suggesting we send our 2-year-old daughter away? I'm suggesting we're drowning and we need help. She's a baby, James. She's not a problem to be warehoused. Then what's your solution? His voice rose sharply. Because I'm out of ideas, Victoria. I'm out of energy. I'm out of everything. I can't do this anymore. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Can't do what anymore? Victoria's voice was ice. This marriage, this family. Our daughter James looked at her, and for the first time in their 12 years together, she saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Surrender. I don't know, he said quietly. I honestly don't know. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and she watched the familiar relief flood his face. An excuse to escape. I have to take this. Of course you do. You always do. He walked out without looking back. Victoria heard the elevator doors close, and then she was alone with Lily's screaming echoing through the penthouse like a siren that would never stop. She walked to her daughter's room. Lily was standing in her crib, face purple with rage tears and snot streaming down her cheeks. Her tiny hands gripped the bars like a prisoner. Lily, baby. Victoria reached for her. Mommy's here. It's okay. Lily threw herself backwards, slamming against the crib so hard Victoria gasped. No, 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 please, sweetheart. Victoria's voice cracked. Please, just tell me what you need. I'll give you anything. Just tell me. She reached into the crib to pick up her daughter. Lily bit her, hard, on the soft flesh of her inner forearm. Victoria felt the skin break, felt the warm trickle of blood. She stumbled backward, clutching her arm. The bite mark was already turning purple, small teeth marks visible in her flesh. Her own child had drawn blood. Lily kept screaming. Victoria sank to the floor outside the nursery door. She looked at her bleeding arm and felt something inside her crack. Not break. Crack. Like ice before it gives way completely. Her phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. She shouldn't answer. She knew she shouldn't answer, but her hand moved anyway. Victoria, darling. Eleanor Sterling's voice was crisp and judgmental even through the phone. I just spoke with Margaret Chen. She tells me you've been blacklisted from 3 nanny agencies this month alone. Mother, this isn't a good time. It's never a good time with you. That's the problem, Eleanor continued without pause. I warned you about having children while maintaining your career. A woman cannot serve 2 masters. Either you're a mother or you're a banker. Trying to be both creates exactly this situation. Lily's screaming grew louder. What on earth is that noise? Eleanor demanded. That noise is your granddaughter. Well, can't someone make her stop? It sounds like you're torturing the child. Victoria pressed her bleeding arm against her chest. Thank you for your concern. Mother, I have to go. She hung up before Eleanor could respond. The phone buzzed again. A text from James. Taking a hotel room tonight. Need to clear my head. We'll call tomorrow. Victoria stared at the screen. Her husband was leaving. Not permanently, maybe, but leaving. Walking away from the screaming. Walking away from her. She couldn't blame him. She wanted to walk away too. Victoria looked at the bite mark on her arm, then at her daughter's door. The screaming had shifted into something rhythmic and hopeless, like Lily had given up expecting anyone to help. That sound, that defeated, exhausted sound. It broke Victoria's heart more than the rage ever had. She pushed herself up and walked back into the nursery. Lily had collapsed in her crib, still crying, but weakly now, her small body shaking with sobs. Victoria stood there watching her daughter, and for the first time allowed herself to think the thought she'd been fighting for 19 months. What if I'm not meant to be a mother? What if some women simply don't have it in them? What if Lily knows this can feel this, and that's why she screams? Victoria backed out of the room, closed the door, and went to the kitchen to bandage her arm. Then she sat at the counter in the dark, listening to her daughter cry herself to sleep, and wondered how everything she'd worked so hard for had fallen apart so completely. The next morning, Victoria called 11 agencies before noon. The Morrison Agency said no. The Westside Nanny Network said no. Elite Childcare Solutions said they'd heard about the Sterling situation and weren't accepting challenging cases. Premier Domestic Staffing said they would add her to a waiting list. The waiting list was 18 months long. Manhattan Mothers Network said they only worked with families who had positive references from previous caregivers. Victoria didn't have a single one. By 1 o'clock, she'd been rejected by everyone who specialized in children. James texted at 2. Any luck? No. What about non-specialist general domestic agencies? Victoria stared at the message. He wanted her to hire someone unqualified, someone without training or credentials or experience with difficult children. 3 months ago, she would have refused. But 3 months ago, she still believed she could fix this. She called Budget Domestic Services at 2:30. We have someone available, the dispatcher said. She's primarily a housekeeper, but she has childcare experience. Can she start tomorrow? Does she know about my daughter's situation? We told her the basics. She says she's not afraid of difficult children. Victoria almost laughed. They all say that. Fine, send her tomorrow at 8. She hung up and looked at the ceiling, listening to Lily bang toys against her crib bars in the room above. This wouldn't work. Nothing worked. But at least it was something. Grace Washington arrived at the Sterling penthouse at exactly 8 the next morning. Victoria opened the door and felt her assumptions crash together. Grace was black. Young. Maybe early 30s. She wore simple jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. She carried cleaning supplies in a worn canvas bag that had clearly seen years of use. No designer clothes, no expensive accessories, nothing that suggested she belonged in this building at all. The doorman had probably questioned her 3 times on the way up. Mrs. Sterling Grace's voice was warm but careful. I'm Grace Washington from Budget Domestic. Victoria recovered quickly. Yes, come in. Grace stepped inside and looked around the penthouse. Her face remained neutral, but Victoria caught something flicker in her eyes. Not envy, not judgment, something else. Beautiful home. Thank you. Victoria led her toward the kitchen. The agency said you have experience with children. I worked at a daycare in Brooklyn for 5 years. Before that, I helped my grandmother with foster children, and I've done some private childcare work. But you're not a certified nanny. No, ma'am. I'm a housekeeper. But I've been around children my whole life. They don't scare me. From upstairs, Lily's morning screaming began. The sound sliced through the penthouse like a blade. Victoria watched Grace's face carefully, watched for the flinch, the fear, the quick calculation of how to escape. Grace simply looked toward the stairs. How long has she been doing that? Since she was born. She screams at everyone. Every nanny, every caregiver, every therapist. Everyone. Grace nodded slowly. Poor baby. Excuse me, she sounds exhausted, like she's been fighting a long time. Victoria blinked. That wasn't the response she expected. Usually people said things like she has quite a set of lungs or you must have your hands full. Dismissive things. Things that made Lily's pain sound like an inconvenience. Grace had called her daughter a poor baby, like she actually felt sorry for her. May I see her? Grace asked. You want to see her now while she's screaming? If I'm going to be working in this house, I should meet everyone who lives here. Something about Grace's calmness unsettled Victoria. It wasn't forced cheerfulness. It wasn't professional confidence. It was something deeper, steadier, like Grace had seen difficult things before and hadn't looked away. Follow me. They climbed the stairs together. The screaming grew louder with each step. By the time they reached the nursery, it was almost unbearable. Victoria pushed open the door. Lily stood in her crib face, red and tear-streaked, hurling stuffed animals at the wall with surprising force. When she saw Victoria, her screaming intensified. No, no, Mama, no, Lily. Honey, this is Grace. She's going to be helping around the house. Lily grabbed her stuffed giraffe and threw it directly at Victoria's head. Victoria ducked just in time. She's tired, Grace said quietly, and scared. She's always like this. Grace didn't respond. She was watching Lily with those calm, assessing eyes, and then she did something strange. She started to hum. It was a soft melody. Nothing Victoria recognized. Nothing fancy or complicated. Just a gentle tune that rose and fell like breathing. Lily's scream faltered. The toddler stopped throwing things. Her mouth stayed open, but no sound came out. She stared at Grace with wide, confused eyes. Grace kept humming. She didn't move toward Lily, didn't try to pick her up. She just stood there, humming that soft melody present and available, but not pushing. Lily's face crumpled. Not with rage this time. With something else. Longing. Confusion. A question she didn't have words for. She reached toward Grace with both arms. May I? Grace asked Victoria. Victoria's throat was too tight to speak. She nodded. Grace crossed to the crib, slowly still humming. She lifted Lily out with practiced ease, settling the toddler on her hip. Lily buried her face in Grace's shoulder and went still. Completely still. No screaming. No fighting. No biting. Victoria stood frozen, watching a stranger hold her daughter in a way she'd never been able to do herself. Grace kept humming. Her hand came up to stroke Lily's curls with a tenderness that made Victoria's eyes burn. She just needed to know someone was listening, Grace said softly. Sometimes that's all children need. Victoria couldn't speak, couldn't move. Her impossible daughter, the child who had driven away 14 trained professionals, was falling asleep in the arms of a housekeeper she'd met 2 minutes ago. How did you do that? Grace looked up. For just a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Pain, deep and old. I just listened. That song. What is it, an old lullaby? My grandmother used to sing it to me when I was small. Her grandmother sang it to her. Goes back generations, I think. Lily sighed against Grace's shoulder, her tiny body finally relaxing. Mrs. Sterling. I should start on the cleaning. Do you want me to put her down, or should I keep her with me? Keep her. Victoria heard the desperation in her own voice. Please, just keep her. Grace nodded. Her face was carefully neutral, but Victoria could see questions in her eyes. The same questions Victoria was asking herself. What just happened? And what does it mean Victoria spent the next 3 hours trying to work and failing completely? Every 10 minutes she found an excuse to walk through the penthouse. Every time she passed a room where Grace was working, she heard that soft humming. Every time she looked, she saw Lily calm and content. Lily sat in a laundry basket while Grace folded clothes, giggling as Grace made socks into puppets. Lily stacked plastic cups while Grace scrubbed the kitchen floor, humming the whole time. Lily ate lunch. All of it. Vegetables, fruit yogurt, even the spinach puree she usually threw across the room. At 1:30, Victoria stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Grace feed her daughter, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Also jealousy. Deep, ugly jealousy that she hated herself for feeling. She's never eaten like that for me, Victoria said. Grace looked up. She was patient today. Some days children just need patience. I'm patient with her. I try to be patient. I'm sure you are. Grace's voice was gentle. But sometimes patience isn't enough. Sometimes children need to feel like you're not waiting for them to fail. Victoria stiffened. You think I expect her to fail? I think you're scared. And children can feel fear. It makes them feel unsafe. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't. Grace met her eyes steadily. But I know children, and I know that little girl has been trying to tell people something her whole life. She just needed someone who speaks her language. And you speak her language. I speak the language of children who feel invisible. Yes. There was something in Grace's voice, something heavy and personal. How Victoria asked. How do you know that language? Grace looked down at Lily, who was happily smearing yogurt on her face. Because I was invisible once too. For a long time. Until someone saw me. Who saw you? My grandmother. Grace's voice softened. She raised me after my mama couldn't. She used to sing that song when I was scared. Used to tell me that being invisible to some people doesn't mean you don't matter. It just means those people don't have eyes to see. Lily looked up at Grace with adoring eyes. More, she said clearly. More yogurt, Grace laughed. You're going to turn into a yogurt monster. More, Lily clapped her hands. Grace gave her another spoonful, and Lily ate it happily, and Victoria stood watching with tears building behind her eyes. Her daughter had just said more. Clearly. Purposefully. Lily barely spoke at all. The developmental specialist said she was behind on language, said she might need speech therapy, but here she was asking for things, communicating, because of a housekeeper who'd been here less than 6 hours. I need to make some calls, Victoria said. Her voice was strangled. Will you be okay with her? We'll be fine. Grace smiled at Lily. Won't we, sweet girl? Lily reached up and touched Grace's face with yogurt-covered fingers. Grace. Pretty Grace. Grace's smile faltered for just a moment. Her eyes glistened. That's very sweet, baby girl. Now let's get you cleaned up. Victoria fled to her office and closed the door. She sat at her desk with shaking hands and tried to breathe. Her daughter was speaking, eating, laughing. All the things Victoria had prayed for. All the things she'd paid specialists thousands of dollars to help with. A housekeeper from a budget agency had accomplished it in one morning. She should be grateful. She should be calling James to share the good news. Instead, she felt like she was losing something she'd never really had. Victoria pulled up her browser and typed Grace Washington Brooklyn Daycare. Nothing relevant. Grace Washington childcare references. Nothing. Grace Washington background. Generic results. Common name. She sat back in her chair. Grace Washington was a ghost. No social media presence, no professional profiles, no digital footprint at all. In this day and age, that was strange, almost suspicious. But she'd just watched Grace perform a miracle with her daughter. Victoria closed the browser and told herself to stop looking for problems. At 3 o'clock, Victoria found them in the living room. Grace was on the floor building a block tower with Lily. The toddler was focused and careful, placing each block with intense concentration. No throwing, no screaming, no destruction. Grace, look. Lily placed the final block on top. Big tower, look at that. Grace clapped her hands. You built that all by yourself. Can you count them with me? 1, 2, 3. Lily's voice was clear and proud. 4, 5, 6 blocks. You're so smart, Lily. You're amazing. Lily threw her arms around Grace's neck. Love, Grace? Victoria's heart stopped. Love, Grace. Her daughter's first I love you. Not for her mother. Not for her father. For a woman she'd known for 7 hours. Grace held Lily close, and Victoria saw her face over the child's shoulder. Grace was crying. Silent tears sliding down her cheeks. Grace saw Victoria watching. She gently pulled back from Lily. Your mama's here. Do you want to show her your tower? Lily looked at Victoria, and for one terrible moment, her face started to crumple. But Grace began humming softly, and Lily relaxed. Mama, look. Lily pointed at the blocks. Lily made tower. Victoria knelt down slowly. It's beautiful, sweetheart. You did such a good job. She reached out to touch Lily's hair. Lily flinched but didn't scream. Progress. Tiny, heartbreaking progress. I think she's getting tired, Grace said. Should I put her down for a nap? Can you... She never naps for me. I can try. Grace lifted Lily and carried her toward the nursery, humming that same melody. Victoria followed and stood in the doorway watching. Grace lowered Lily into the crib gently. The toddler whimpered but didn't cry. I'll be here when you wake up, Grace whispered. I promise. You're safe now. Grace, stay. Grace, stay. Lily's eyes drifted closed. Within 2 minutes, she was asleep. Grace stood there for a long moment looking down at the sleeping child. Her expression made Victoria's chest ache. It wasn't professional distance. It wasn't hired help affection. It was something that looked almost like grief. Grace turned and saw Victoria in the doorway. She sleeps well when she feels safe, Grace said quietly. She just needs to know someone will be there when she wakes up. Grace, I need to ask you something. Of course. Victoria stepped into the hallway, lowering her voice. The way you are with her, the way she responds to you, it's not normal. I don't mean that badly. I mean it's extraordinary, and I need to understand why. Grace's face shuddered. Mrs. Sterling, I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing something else, something more, and I think you know exactly what it is. Silence stretched between them. Have you ever lost someone? Victoria asked. A child. Grace went very pale. That's a very personal question. I know, but my daughter just said I love you to a stranger. And that stranger was crying when she said it back. So I think I deserve an answer. Grace looked away. Her hands were shaking. I should finish the upstairs bathrooms before I leave. Grace, please, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm trying to understand. Some things can't be explained, Mrs. Sterling. They can only be felt. She walked away and Victoria let her go. But the question stayed with her. What was Grace hiding, and what did it have to do with her daughter? At 6 o'clock, Grace brought Lily downstairs. The toddler was clean-fed and wearing fresh pajamas. She'd slept for 3 hours. She should sleep through the night, Grace said. I kept her active this afternoon, and she ate a good dinner. Thank you. Victoria took Lily into her arms. Lily went without fussing. Another miracle. Grace picked up her bag. Same time tomorrow. Actually, Victoria said I wanted to talk to you about that. Grace went still. If this isn't working out, I understand. No, that's not what I meant. Victoria shifted Lily on her hip. I want to offer you a different position. Different how I want you to be Lily's primary caregiver. Full time. I'll triple whatever the agency is paying you. Quadruple if you want. The cleaning would be secondary to taking care of her. Grace stared at her. Mrs. Sterling, I'm not qualified. I don't have certifications or training in special needs. The qualified people quit. All 14 of them. You've been here for 1 day and my daughter is happier than she's ever been. That's worth more than any certificate. Grace looked at Lily, who was watching her with sleepy eyes. I don't know if this is a good idea. Why not? Because I get attached. Grace's voice was barely a whisper. I get attached to children, and then when I have to leave, it hurts. For everyone. Then don't leave. Victoria stepped closer. I'm not asking you to be a temporary solution. I'm asking you to be permanent. Part of our family. Grace's eyes filled with tears. You don't know anything about me. I know you love my daughter. I can see it. And I know she loves you. That's enough. It shouldn't be. Maybe not. But right now it's all I have. Victoria's voice cracked. I'm drowning, Grace. My marriage is falling apart. My daughter screams every time I touch her. I haven't slept through the night in 19 months. You're the first good thing that's happened to this family in longer than I can remember. Please, please don't walk away. Grace stood very still, tears streaming down her face. If I do this, she said finally, I need you to understand something. Anything. I will love Lily like she's my own. I will protect her with everything I have. I will make sure she's happy and safe and knows she's worthy of love. That's all I want. But she's your daughter, not mine. Grace's voice broke. I need you to remember that. Always. No matter what happens, she's yours. Promise me you'll remember that. It was a strange thing to say, almost like a warning, almost like a confession. I promise, Victoria said. Grace wiped her face and nodded. Then okay, I'll do it. Relief flooded through Victoria so fast she almost collapsed. Thank you so much. Grace stepped forward and gently touched Lily's cheek. Hey, sweet girl. Looks like I'm going to be here tomorrow, and the day after that. Lily's face transformed. Grace. Stay forever. I'll stay as long as your mama wants me to. Lily reached for Grace, and Victoria let her go. The toddler wrapped her arms around Grace's neck and held on tight. Love, Grace. I love you too, baby girl. Grace closed her eyes. I love you too. Victoria watched them embrace, and something cold moved through her chest. She told herself it was gratitude, but it felt more like fear. After Grace left, Victoria put Lily to bed. The toddler fell asleep within minutes, peaceful and content. James called at 9. How did it go with the housekeeper? Victoria sat in her dark office staring at her computer screen. She hasn't left yet. I offered her a full-time position as Lily's caregiver. Silence. You did what, James, you should have seen it. Lily was calm all day. She ate. She napped. She spoke in full sentences. She said, I love you. To you, the question cut deep. To Grace, more silence. Victoria, don't you think that's strange? A random housekeeper shows up and suddenly our daughter is cured. She's not cured. She's just finally comfortable with someone. Someone who isn't us. Victoria closed her eyes. I know how it sounds, but I watched them together all day. Grace is gentle with her, patient. She doesn't treat Lily like a problem to be solved. And you think this woman should be raising our daughter? I think this woman is the only person Lily has ever trusted, and I think we need to accept help wherever we can find it. James sighed heavily. I'll be home tomorrow. We'll talk about this then. James, Victoria's voice caught. Are we okay? A long pause. I don't know, Victoria. I honestly don't know. He hung up. Victoria sat in the darkness listening to the silence of her penthouse. For the first time in 19 months, there was no screaming. She should be happy. She should be relieved. Instead, she felt like she was standing on the edge of something she couldn't see. Something dark and deep and dangerous. She opened her laptop and began searching again. Grace Washington, Brooklyn Childcare. Nothing. Grace Washington nanny references. Nothing. Grace Washington tragedy. Nothing. She tried different combinations, different keywords, different approaches, and then almost by accident she typed Grace Washington infant death. The results loaded. Victoria's blood turned to ice. The first headline read, Brooklyn caregiver questioned in death of 7-month-old. No charges filed. There was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance. A woman being led from a large house by police officers, her face turned away from the cameras. But Victoria recognized the shape of her shoulders, the way she held herself, the curve of her neck. It was Grace. Victoria clicked the article with numb fingers. Brooklyn domestic worker Grace Washington, 32, was questioned by Greenwich police following the death of 7-month-old Lily Ashford at the family residence. Washington was employed as a temporary caregiver through a domestic staffing agency and was present in the home when the infant was found unresponsive in a bathtub. The medical examiner ruled the death an accidental drowning. No charges were filed against Washington, though the family disputes this conclusion. Victoria stopped breathing. Lily. The baby who died had been named Lily. She kept reading. Another article from a week later. Ashford family demands justice for drowned baby. Mother says caregiver neglected duty. Caroline Ashford, mother of deceased infant Lily. Ashford held a press conference today demanding further investigation into her daughter's death. That woman was supposed to protect my baby, Ashford said through tears. She was in the next room while my daughter drowned. She heard nothing. Did nothing. My baby is dead because Grace Washington failed to do her job. Another article. 3 months later. No criminal charges in Ashford baby death. Family vows civil action. The Greenwich Police Department has closed its investigation into the death of 7-month-old Lily Ashford, citing insufficient evidence of criminal negligence. Grace Washington, the caregiver present at the time of the incident, has been released from all criminal liability. The Ashford family announced plans to pursue civil action. Victoria scrolled through article after article. A baby named Lily had drowned. Grace had been there. Grace had been blamed. And now Grace was in her home caring for her daughter. A daughter also named Lily. Victoria stood up so fast her chair fell over. She walked to Lily's room and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. Lily's face was peaceful, relaxed, happy. The best day of her life had been spent with a woman who might have let another child die. Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Sterling, this is Caroline Ashford. I saw Grace Washington's name on a background check alert. We need to talk immediately. You are in danger. Your daughter is in danger. That woman killed my baby and she's going to kill yours. Victoria stared at the screen. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. She looked at her sleeping daughter. She thought about Grace's tears, Grace's tenderness, Grace's strange warning. She's your daughter, not mine. Promise me you'll remember that. What had she invited into her home? Victoria walked back to her office, locked the door, and called Caroline Ashford. The phone rang twice. A woman's voice answered sharp and raw. Is this Jennifer Sterling? It's Victoria Sterling. You texted me about Grace Washington. Thank God you called. Caroline's voice was trembling. I've been tracking her for 2 years, waiting for her to surface, waiting for her to do this again. Do what again? Find another baby to destroy. Victoria's throat closed. Tell me everything." "Grace Washington murdered my daughter." Caroline's voice broke into a sob. "The police couldn't prove it. But I know what happened. I know what she did. And now she's in your house with your little girl, and you have to get her out before it's too late." Victoria looked at her computer screen at the articles still displayed. "Tell me," she said. "Tell me exactly what happened." And Caroline Ashford began to speak. Victoria listened until 2 in the morning. When the call ended, she sat in her dark office and tried to make sense of what she'd heard. 2 completely different stories. 2 completely different versions of the truth. One of them was a lie. But which one? She walked to Lily's room again. Her daughter was still sleeping peacefully. Tomorrow, Grace would return. She would hold Lily, sing to her, love her. And Victoria would have to decide whether that love was a gift or a threat. She looked at the bite mark on her arm, now fading to yellow. She thought about her daughter's first "I love you" given to someone else. She thought about Grace's tears. And she realized that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. Victoria sat in the rocking chair beside her daughter's crib and watched Lily sleep until the sun came up, waiting, wondering, afraid. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She sat in the rocking chair beside Lily's crib until the first gray light of dawn crept through the windows, replaying Caroline Ashford's words over and over in her mind. She let my baby drown. She heard my daughter crying and did nothing. She was angry because I'd told her that morning she was being let go. She wanted to punish me, and she used my baby to do it. Caroline had sobbed through the entire phone call. 2 hours of grief and rage pouring through the speaker. 2 hours of a mother's worst nightmare laid bare. But something about it felt wrong. Victoria couldn't put her finger on it. The details were specific. The pain was real. Caroline Ashford had clearly lost a child and blamed Grace Washington for it. But there were gaps, inconsistencies, little things that didn't quite add up. At 6 in the morning, Victoria called James. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Victoria, what's wrong? I need you to come home. Now, what happened? Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine, but we have a problem. A serious problem." Silence. "Then I'm on my way." He arrived at 7:15, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Victoria met him in the kitchen, her laptop open on the counter. She told him everything. The articles, the phone call with Caroline, the accusations. James's face went from confused to horrified to furious in the span of 10 minutes. "You're telling me the woman caring for our daughter let a baby drown?" He slammed his hand on the counter. "And you hired her anyway. I didn't know. I only found out last night. But you offered her a full-time position yesterday, before you knew. I searched for her online. Nothing came up. The agency did a background check. Nothing flagged. Obviously their background check missed something important." Victoria pressed her hands against her temples. I know, but James, there's something else. Something that doesn't make sense. What could possibly not make sense? A baby is dead. Grace was there. What else do you need?" The police investigated. They found no evidence of neglect or wrongdoing. They closed the case. Because rich white families in Greenwich have lawyers, they bury things. James started pacing. "We have to fire her. Today. Right now. Before she gets here." And tell Lily what Victoria's voice cracked. Yesterday was the best day of her life. She spoke more words than she has in months. She hugged someone. She said, "I love you." She said, "I love you" to a possible murderer? We don't know that. We don't know anything. James stopped pacing and stared at her. That's the problem. We don't know who this woman is or what she's capable of. Victoria looked at her sleeping daughter on the baby monitor. Lily's face was peaceful, relaxed. "I want to talk to her first." "Talk to who, Grace?" "Yes, I want to hear her side of the story. She's going to lie. Maybe. Or maybe she'll tell me something that makes sense of all this." James shook his head. "This is insane, Victoria. You're risking our daughter's safety because you want to give a stranger the benefit of the doubt. I'm risking our daughter's happiness because I want the truth. There's a difference." They stared at each other across the kitchen, the same impasse they'd been reaching for months. "Fine," James said finally. "Talk to her, but I'm staying. And if anything she says seems wrong, even slightly wrong, she's gone." "No discussion. Agreed." Victoria looked at the clock. 7:30. Grace would be here in 30 minutes. Grace arrived at exactly 8 o'clock. She walked through the service entrance wearing the same simple jeans and gray sweater. Her canvas bag hung from her shoulder. She was humming softly. She stopped when she saw James and Victoria standing together in the kitchen. "Good morning." Her voice was cautious. "Mr. Sterling, it's nice to meet you." James didn't respond. His jaw was tight, his arms crossed over his chest. Grace looked between them. Her expression shifted from cautious to wary. "Is something wrong?" "We need to talk," Victoria said. "Sit down." Grace set down her bag slowly. She pulled out a chair and sat her hands folded on the table, perfectly still, perfectly controlled. But Victoria saw the fear behind her eyes. Grace knew what was coming. "I did some research last night," Victoria began. "I found some articles about you, about what happened in Greenwich 2.5 years ago." Grace's face went pale. She didn't speak. "A baby died. A baby named Lily. You were there." "Yes. The mother says you let her daughter drown on purpose. She says you were angry because she'd fired you that morning." Grace closed her eyes. "That's what she told the police. That's what she told everyone. Is it true? No." James leaned forward. "Then what is true? What really happened?" Grace opened her eyes. They were filled with tears. "I was making dinner. Vanessa asked me to start cooking while she gave Emma a bath. I was in the kitchen. I had music playing on my phone, water running in the sink. I was chopping vegetables." Her voice broke. "I heard Vanessa's phone ring. I heard her answer it. I could hear her voice getting louder like she was arguing with someone. I assumed she'd taken Emma out of the bath first. I assumed the baby was safe." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "I didn't know Vanessa had left Emma alone in the tub. I didn't know she'd walked into the hallway to scream at her husband on the phone. I didn't know Emma was still in the water." Grace's whole body trembled. "By the time I heard Vanessa screaming, it was too late. I ran in and Emma was face down in the bathtub. I pulled her out. I tried CPR. I called 911, but she was already gone." The kitchen was silent except for Grace's quiet sobbing. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. The story was different from Caroline's. Completely different. One of them was lying. But why would Vanessa lie? James demanded. "Why would she blame you if it was her fault?" Grace looked up at him. Her eyes were red but steady. "Because she was drunk. Because she was on pills. Because she was losing a custody battle with her husband, and she knew that if the truth came out, she'd lose everything." James's expression flickered. What custody battle? Richard was trying to take Emma away from her. He'd filed emergency papers 2 weeks before the drowning. He said Vanessa was unstable, that she was using again, that she wasn't safe to be around the baby. Grace's voice hardened. When Emma died, Vanessa was facing the possibility of going to prison for negligent homicide. She was facing the end of her marriage, the end of her social standing, everything she cared about. She paused. And then her lawyers realized there was someone else in the house that night. Someone with no money, no connections, no way to fight back. Someone who could take the blame instead. Victoria's blood ran cold. "You're saying she framed you. I'm saying she let me take the fall for something she did. The police investigated. They found she'd been drinking. They found prescription pills in her system. But her family has money, old money, Greenwich money. They made the problem go away." James shook his head. "That's very convenient. You have an answer for everything. I have the truth. You can believe it or not." Grace stood up. "I understand if you want me to leave. I'll go right now if that's what you want." She picked up her bag. "But before I go, I want you to know something. I didn't take this job because I wanted to hurt anyone. I took it because I saw your ad, and it said you were looking for help with a little girl named Lily. And I couldn't stop thinking about it, about her." Grace's voice cracked. "I know how crazy that sounds. I know it seems like obsession. But when I met your daughter, when I saw how much she was struggling, how desperate she was for someone to understand her, I thought maybe this was a chance to do something right, to help a child named Lily instead of failing one." She looked at Victoria. "I'm not asking you to forgive me for what happened. I can't forgive myself. But I would never ever hurt your daughter. I would die before I let anything happen to her." The words hung in the air. Victoria looked at James. His face was unreadable. She thought about Caroline's sobbing accusations. She thought about Grace's tearful denial. She thought about her daughter sleeping peacefully upstairs for the first time in months. "Give us a minute," Victoria said. Grace nodded and walked to the living room, her shoulders hunched. Victoria turned to James. "Well, I don't know what to believe. Neither do I. But I know one thing. What she's the only person Lily has ever trusted. And if we send her away without knowing the truth, we might destroy the only chance our daughter has at a normal life." James ran his hands through his hair. "So what do you suggest I want to verify her story? Talk to Richard Ashford. Look at the court records. Find out if there really was a custody battle, and in the meantime, we watch her, carefully. We install cameras if we have to, but we don't send her away, not yet." James was quiet for a long moment. If anything happens to Lily because of this decision, I will never forgive you. If anything happens to Lily, Victoria said quietly, I will never forgive myself. They called Grace back into the kitchen. You can stay, Victoria said, for now, but I need to verify what you've told me. I understand. I'm going to contact Richard Ashford. I'm going to look at the court documents. If I find out you've lied to me about anything, you're gone. Grace nodded. I haven't lied, and I won't. From upstairs, Lily's voice rang out. Grace, Grace. She was awake, and she was calling for Grace. Grace looked toward the stairs, then back at Victoria. May I? Victoria hesitated, then nodded. Grace walked upstairs, and a moment later, Victoria heard that soft humming through the baby monitor, heard her daughter's delighted laughter. James moved to stand beside her. I hope you know what you're doing. Victoria watched the monitor, watched Grace lift Lily from her crib, watched her daughter wrap her arms around Grace's neck. So do I. Victoria spent the next 3 hours digging. She called a private investigator she'd used for corporate work. He agreed to start immediately. She found the number for Richard Ashford's office and left a message with his assistant. She pulled court records from Greenwich and found exactly what Grace had described. Emergency custody filing. Allegations of substance abuse. A hearing scheduled for 1 week after Emma's death that never happened because there was no longer a child to fight over. At 11 o'clock, her phone rang. Mrs. Sterling, and this is Richard Ashford returning your call. Victoria's heart pounded. Mr. Ashford, thank you for calling me back. Your message said this was about Grace Washington. Yes, she's working for my family now, caring for my daughter. A long pause. I see. I spoke with your ex-wife last night. She told me Grace let your daughter drown on purpose. I know what Caroline told you. Richard's voice was heavy with exhaustion. She's been telling that story for 2.5 years. Is it true? Number Victoria gripped the phone. Can you tell me what really happened? Grace was making dinner. Caroline was supposed to be giving Emma a bath, but Caroline had been drinking. She was on pills. She got a phone call from me, and we started arguing about the custody case. Richard's voice broke. She left Emma alone in the bathtub to yell at me. A 7-month-old baby in a bath seat that she'd already outgrown. Emma slipped out of the seat. Her face went under the water. How long? The medical examiner said 3 minutes. Maybe more. Richard was crying now. Grace was in the kitchen. She had music on, water running. She didn't know Caroline had left Emma alone. She didn't know anything was wrong until Caroline started screaming. Victoria closed her eyes. When the police came, Caroline was hysterical. She kept saying Grace should have been watching. Grace should have checked. But Grace wasn't the one who left Emma in the tub. Caroline was. Then why did everyone blame Grace? Because Caroline's family has money. They have lawyers. They have connections. Richard's voice turned bitter, and they needed someone to blame. Someone who wasn't Caroline. Someone who couldn't fight back. He paused. Grace Washington is not a murderer. She's a victim. She lost everything because my ex-wife couldn't face what she'd done. Victoria felt tears streaming down her own face. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you defend her? Because I was grieving. Because I was in shock. Because by the time I understood what Caroline had done, Grace was already destroyed. Her reputation was ruined. She'd lost her job, her apartment, everything. And I was too much of a coward to make it right. Richard's voice dropped to a whisper. I've regretted that every day since. If Grace is taking care of your daughter, Mrs. Sterling, you're lucky. She's one of the most caring people I've ever known. She didn't deserve what happened to her. Victoria hung up the phone. She sat in her office for a long time, thinking. Then she went to find Grace. Grace was in the playroom helping Lily with a puzzle. The toddler was focused and calm, placing pieces with careful precision. Lily, look, Grace pointed to a completed section. You did the whole sky. Blue sky. Lily grinned. Pretty blue sky. Just like your eyes, sweet girl. Victoria stood in the doorway, watching. Grace looked up and saw her. Her expression was guarded, waiting for the verdict. I spoke with Richard Ashford. Grace went very still. He told me what really happened that night. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak. I'm sorry. Victoria stepped into the room. I'm sorry for what they did to you, for what you lost. Grace shook her head. You don't have to apologize. You were protecting your daughter. That's what mothers do. Victoria knelt down beside them. Lily looked up confused by the serious atmosphere. Mama sad, no baby. Victoria reached out and touched her daughter's cheek. Lily flinched slightly but didn't pull away. Mama's not sad. Mama's just learning something important. What learning? Victoria looked at Grace. That sometimes the people who seem the most broken are the ones who love the most. Grace's tears spilled over. She covered her face with her hands. Lily crawled over to her and wrapped her small arms around Grace's neck. "Don't cry, Grace. Lily loves you." Grace held her tight, sobbing quietly. Victoria watched them and felt something shift inside her chest. Something that had been frozen for a long time starting to thaw. Maybe she had been wrong about everything. Maybe the way to save her daughter wasn't through experts and specialists and certified professionals. Maybe it was through someone who understood what it meant to be broken. Someone who knew how to love anyway. Victoria reached out and put her hand on Grace's shoulder. "Stay," she said. "Not just for Lily, for all of us." Grace looked up at her through tears. "Are you sure I'm sure?" Grace nodded, wiped her face, took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll stay." Lily clapped her hands. "Grace, stay forever. Forever is a long time, sweetie." But Grace smiled through her tears. "I'll stay as long as you need me." The rest of the day passed in fragile peace. James came home early and found Victoria and Grace in the kitchen preparing Lily's dinner together while Lily sat in her high chair chattering happily about her puzzle. He stood in the doorway watching. Victoria looked up. "I talked to Richard Ashford," and Grace told the truth. "About everything." James looked at Grace. Grace met his eyes steadily. "I don't expect you to trust me," she said. "I know how this looks, but I would never hurt your daughter. She's the most precious thing I've ever been given the chance to protect." James was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll try this." He walked to Lily and kissed her forehead. "Hey, Princess, did you have a good day? Best day?" Lily said seriously. Grace stayed. "I heard." James looked at Grace again. Something passed between them. Not quite acceptance, but not hostility either. It was a start. That night after Grace had gone home and Lily was asleep, Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Caroline Ashford. "You made a mistake. Grace Washington is dangerous. You'll see. You'll all see." Victoria stared at the screen. Then she blocked the number. She walked to Lily's room and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. 2 days ago, this child had been screaming. Unreachable. Impossible. Now she was peaceful, happy, speaking in full sentences, all because of a woman the world had condemned without evidence. Victoria thought about Grace. Not the woman, but the concept. The idea of unearned forgiveness. Undeserved second chances. Maybe that's what they all needed. Not perfection, not control, just grace. She closed Lily's door softly and went to find James. He was in their bedroom staring out the window. "I think we need to talk," Victoria said. "About Grace, about us." James turned to face her. "I know things have been hard," Victoria continued. "I know I've been absent. Focused on work, trying to control everything instead of actually being present. Victoria, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." She stepped closer. "I watched Grace with Lily today. Really watched. And I realized something. She doesn't try to fix Lily. She just loves her. Exactly as she is. That's what you want to do. That's what I want to learn." Victoria's voice cracked. "I've been so afraid of failing that I forgot how to try. I forgot how to just be with my daughter. With you." James's eyes softened. "I've made mistakes too. The hotel room. The distance. Talking about sending Lily away. I'm not proud of any of it. So where does that leave us?" James reached out and took her hand. "Maybe it leaves us here. Starting over, trying again." Victoria squeezed his hand. "I'd like that." They stood together in the darkness, holding hands like they used to when they were young, and the future seemed full of promise instead of fear. It wasn't fixed. Nothing was fixed. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like something could be. 3 weeks passed. Grace arrived every morning at 8. She cared for Lily with the same gentle devotion. She taught her songs, read her stories, helped her learn to name her feelings instead of screaming them. Lily thrived. She slept through the night. She ate without battles. She spoke in longer and longer sentences, and slowly she started to accept Victoria too. Mama read story. Lily asked one evening, reaching for Victoria instead of Grace. Victoria's heart nearly stopped. "Yes, baby, Mama would love to read you a story." She gathered Lily in her arms and carried her to the nursery. Lily didn't flinch, didn't squirm, just nestled against her mother's chest. "Love Mama," Lily said softly. Victoria blinked back tears. "I love you too, baby. So much." She read 3 stories that night. Lily fell asleep in her arms. Victoria sat in the rocking chair for a long time, holding her daughter, feeling the weight of her, the warmth. This was what she'd been missing. This was what Grace had shown her how to find. Not control, connection, not perfection, presence. She carried Lily to her crib and laid her down gently. Then she went downstairs and found Grace putting on her coat. "Thank you," Victoria said. "For what?" "For giving me my daughter back," Grace smiled. "You always had her. You just needed to slow down enough to find her." She picked up her bag. "Same time tomorrow, always." Grace walked to the door, then she stopped. "Mrs. Sterling, Victoria, please." "Victoria," Grace turned back. "I want you to know something. What happened with Emma Ashford, the other Lily, it will haunt me forever. I'll never stop wondering if there was something I could have done differently." "Grace, you couldn't have known, maybe, but that doesn't stop the guilt. It doesn't stop the dreams." Grace's eyes glistened. "Taking care of your Lily, watching her grow and heal, it doesn't erase what happened. But it helps. It helps me believe that maybe I'm not cursed. Maybe I can do something good." Victoria crossed the room and hugged her. Grace stiffened in surprise, then relaxed, then hugged her back. "You are doing something good," Victoria said. "More than you know." They stood there for a moment, two women who'd found each other in the wreckage of their own fears. Then Grace pulled back, wiped her eyes, and smiled. "Good night, Victoria. Good night, Grace." Grace walked out into the evening. Victoria watched her go, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. But 3 days later, everything changed. Victoria came home from work early and found the penthouse silent. Not the peaceful silence of nap time. The empty silence of absence. "Grace?" she called. "Lily," no answer. Victoria walked through the penthouse, her heart beating faster with each empty room. The playroom was deserted. Toys scattered on the floor. The kitchen was empty. Lily's lunch sat uneaten on the counter. The nursery was vacant. Lily's crib was made but cold. Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I told you she was dangerous. Now look what she's done. Your daughter is gone." Victoria's blood turned to ice. She dialed Grace's number. It went straight to voicemail. She dialed James. "Victoria, what's wrong? Lily's gone. She's not here." Grace isn't answering her phone. "What do you mean gone? I mean they're not in the apartment." Victoria's voice rose to a scream. "Our daughter is missing, James. Our daughter is missing, and Grace took her." She hung up and called 911, and then she stood in her empty penthouse surrounded by everything money could buy and realized that none of it mattered. Because her daughter was gone, and she didn't know if she would ever see her again. The 911 operator's voice was calm, professional, infuriatingly slow. "Ma'am, I need you to take a breath and tell me exactly what happened. My daughter is missing." Victoria's voice cracked. "She's 2 years old. Her name is Lily Sterling. She was with her caregiver and now they're both gone. How long have they been missing? I don't know. I came home 20 minutes ago and the apartment was empty. Her lunch is still on the counter. She never misses lunch. Ma'am, is it possible the caregiver took her to the park to run errands? She would have called me. She always calls me." Victoria's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. "Please, please send someone. Something is wrong. I know something is wrong. Officers are on their way, ma'am. Stay where you are." Victoria hung up and immediately dialed Grace again. Voicemail. She dialed again. Voicemail. Again. "The phone you are trying to reach is no longer in service." Victoria's blood turned to ice. No longer in service. Grace's phone had been disconnected. She ran to the kitchen and grabbed her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the tracking app she'd installed on Lily's tablet. Location not found. She tried the GPS on Lily's shoes, the ones with the hidden tracker she'd bought after the third nanny quit. Signal lost. Everything was gone. Every way to find her daughter had been erased. Victoria heard herself, stopped making a sound something between a scream and a sob. She pressed her hand against her mouth and tried to think. Grace wouldn't do this. Grace loved Lily. Grace had cried when Lily said, "I love you." But Grace had also been accused of letting a baby drown. What if Caroline was right? What if everything Grace said was a lie? Victoria's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Check the security cameras. See for yourself what your precious Grace really is." Victoria ran to the building's security office. The concierge looked up, startled. "Mrs. Sterling, is everything all right? I need to see the lobby footage from today, right now." "Ma'am, I can't just show you security footage without authorization from the building manager. My daughter is missing." Victoria grabbed the counter, her knuckles white. "A woman took her from my apartment and I need to see the footage now." The concierge's face went pale. He picked up the phone and made a quick call. Then he led her to the security room. The footage loaded on the screen. Victoria watched the timestamp. 11:47 a.m. Grace walked through the lobby with Lily in her arms. Lily was wearing her pink jacket, the one with the bunny ears on the hood. She was clutching her stuffed rabbit. They looked normal, happy even. Lily was laughing at something Grace said. Then a woman approached them. Victoria leaned closer to the screen. The woman was blonde, wearing sunglasses and an expensive coat. She walked directly to Grace and said something. Grace's entire body went rigid. The woman said something else. Grace shook her head. The woman grabbed Grace's arm. Victoria watched Grace's face transform from confusion to fear to absolute terror. The woman leaned close and whispered something in Grace's ear. Grace went white. Then she turned and walked out of the building with the woman, Lily still in her arms. Victoria's heart stopped. "Who is that?" She pointed at the screen. "Can you zoom in?" The concierge adjusted the image. The woman's face came into clearer focus. Blonde hair, sharp features, designer sunglasses pushed up on her forehead. Victoria knew that face. She'd seen it in the articles about the Ashford baby's death. Caroline Ashford. Victoria grabbed her phone and called James. He answered on the first ring. "I'm almost there. What's happening?" Caroline Ashford took them. "What I saw, the security footage." Caroline approached Grace in the lobby. She said something that scared Grace, and then they all left together. Why would Grace go anywhere with Caroline? She knows Caroline tried to destroy her. I don't know, but whatever Caroline said, it terrified her. Victoria's voice broke. "James? I think Caroline has our daughter. I'm calling the police." James's voice was hard with controlled panic. "Stay there. Don't do anything until I get there." He hung up. Victoria stood in the security room, staring at the frozen image of Caroline Ashford's face. 2.5 years ago, this woman had blamed Grace for her baby's death. Now she had Victoria's daughter. What did she want? Revenge. Justice. Victoria's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello, Victoria." Caroline's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "I see you've been looking at the security footage. Where is my daughter safe?" "For now. What do you want? I want you to understand what Grace Washington really is. I want you to see the truth." "The truth is that you're a kidnapper." Victoria's voice shook with rage. "The truth is that you're holding my child hostage. I'm holding your child safe. From the woman who killed mine. Grace didn't kill your daughter. Your husband told me what really happened. You left Emma alone in the bathtub." Silence. "Richard is a liar." Caroline's voice turned cold. "He abandoned me when I needed him most. He believed that woman over his own wife, because she was telling the truth. She let my baby drown." "You let your baby drown?" Victoria heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "You don't know what you're talking about," Caroline hissed. "You don't know what it's like to lose a child." "You're right." "I don't. But I'm about to find out if you don't tell me where my daughter is. Your daughter is fine. She's playing with toys. She thinks she's on an adventure, where somewhere Grace can never find her. Somewhere she'll be safe from that monster. Grace is not the monster here. You are." Caroline laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "I'm the grieving mother who lost everything. I'm the one who had to bury her 7-month-old daughter. I'm the one who watches other women raise their children while mine is rotting in a grave." Her voice cracked. "Do you know what that's like? Do you have any idea?" Victoria closed her eyes. Tried to find compassion for this broken woman. Failed. "Tell me where my daughter is. Not until Grace confesses. Not until she admits what she did." "She didn't do anything." "Then she has nothing to worry about, does she?" The line went dead. Victoria threw her phone against the wall. The police arrived 12 minutes later. 2 detectives, a patrol officer, and a missing persons specialist. They took Victoria's statement, watched the security footage, and started making calls. James arrived as they were setting up a command center in the penthouse. He pulled Victoria into his arm. "We're going to find her. We're going to get her back." Victoria couldn't speak, couldn't cry. She felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside her and left only fear. One of the detectives approached them. "Mrs. Sterling." "Mr. Sterling, I'm Detective Morrison. We've put out an alert for your daughter and identified Caroline Ashford as a person of interest. We're working on locating her now." "What about Grace?" James asked. "Is she a suspect?" "At this point, we're treating her as a potential victim. The footage suggests she was coerced into leaving with Ashford." Victoria nodded. "That's what I saw." Caroline said something that scared her. "Do you have any idea what Ashford might have said?" Any leverage she might have over Washington, Victoria thought about Grace's story, about the accusations, about the 2.5 years of guilt and shame. "She could have threatened to hurt Lily," Victoria said slowly. "Grace loves my daughter. She would do anything to protect her." The detective made a note. "We're also trying to reach Grace's family." "Do you have any contact information?" Victoria shook her head. "I know she was raised by her grandmother in Harlem, but I don't have a name or address. We'll find it." The detective's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer it. Victoria and James stood in their ruined living room, surrounded by police and equipment and the terrible absence of their daughter. "This is my fault," Victoria whispered. "Don't say that. I trusted Grace. I let her into our home. I ignored the warning signs. There were no warning signs. James took her hands. Grace didn't do this. Caroline did. But if I hadn't hired Grace, Caroline would never have found us. She was tracking Grace, waiting for her to surface, and I led her right to our daughter." Victoria's voice broke into a sob. James pulled her close. "Whatever happens, we face it together. That's what we promised." Victoria buried her face in his shoulder and wept. The detective returned. "We found Grace Washington." Victoria's head snapped up. "Where?" "She walked into the Harlem Police Precinct 20 minutes ago. She's asking for you. Victoria and James arrived at the precinct within the hour. Grace was sitting in an interview room, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking. When she saw Victoria through the window, she stood up so fast her chair fell over. "I'm so sorry." Grace pressed her hands against the glass. "I'm so sorry. I didn't have a choice." Victoria walked into the room. "Where is my daughter? Caroline has her." Grace's voice cracked. "She said if I didn't come with her, she'd hurt Lily. She showed me a picture on her phone. Lily was in a room somewhere. There was a man standing behind her. She said he would do whatever she told him to do." Victoria felt sick. "What does she want?" "She wants me to confess. On camera. She wants me to say I killed Emma Ashford on purpose. She wants me to destroy myself so she can finally have peace. And then she'll let Lily go, that's what she said." Grace wiped her face. "But I don't trust her. I don't trust anything she says. That's why I came here instead. Where is Caroline now?" "I don't know. She dropped me off near Yankee Stadium and told me to go home. Said she'd contact me when she was ready for my confession." And Lily Grace's face crumpled. "She wouldn't tell me. She said Lily was somewhere safe, somewhere I'd never find her." Victoria grabbed Grace's shoulders. "Think, was there anything she said, any clue about where she might be?" Grace closed her eyes, concentrating. She made a phone call in the car. "I heard her say something about the house. Getting things ready at the house. What house, I don't know, but she mentioned water. Something about the water being cold this time of year." Victoria's mind raced. The Ashfords had a house in Greenwich. That's where Emma died. Grace's eyes flew open. The bathtub, where Emma drowned. Victoria felt horror wash over her. She's taking Lily to the place where her own daughter died. Detective Morrison stepped forward. "We're dispatching units to the Greenwich address now." "I'm coming with you," Victoria said. "Ma'am, that's not advisable. My daughter is in a house with a mentally unstable woman who blames everyone but herself for her child's death. I'm coming." The detective looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Let's go." The drive to Greenwich took 43 minutes. Victoria sat in the back of an unmarked police car, watching the city give way to suburbs, then to the wealthy estates of Connecticut. Her phone buzzed. A text from Caroline. "I know you're coming. I've been waiting for you." Victoria showed the detective. He radioed ahead to the units already en route. "Suspect is aware of police presence. Proceed with caution." They pulled up to a large colonial house set back from the road. 3 patrol cars were already there, lights-off officers positioned around the perimeter. The house looked abandoned. Shutters closed. Lawn overgrown? A for sale sign half hidden in the weeds. "This is where Emma died?" Victoria asked. The detective nodded. "The Ashfords sold it after the investigation. It's been on the market ever since." Victoria stared at the house. Somewhere inside, her daughter was alone with a woman who had lost her mind to grief. "What's the plan? Negotiation first. We have a trained hostage negotiator en route. That will take too long. Mrs. Sterling rushing in could put your daughter at greater risk." Victoria knew he was right, but every cell in her body screamed at her to run into that house and find Lily. Her phone buzzed again. "Come inside, Victoria, alone, or I hurt her." Victoria showed the detective. "Absolutely not." He shook his head. "That's exactly what she wants. If I don't go, she'll hurt Lily. If you do go, she might hurt you both." Victoria looked at the house, at the dark windows, at the closed door. She thought about her daughter, about Lily's laugh, her smile, the way she said "love mama" in her sweet little voice. She thought about all the time she'd wasted, all the moments she'd missed, all the chances she'd thrown away chasing things that didn't matter. "I'm going in, Mrs. Sterling." "I can't allow that. You can't stop me." Victoria opened the car door and stepped out. The detective grabbed her arm. "Think about what you're doing." "I am thinking. I'm thinking that my daughter needs me, that she's scared and alone with a stranger in a house full of ghosts. And I'm thinking that I've spent 2 years being too afraid to be her mother. I'm not going to be afraid anymore." She pulled free and walked toward the house. The front door was unlocked. Victoria pushed it open and stepped inside. The house smelled like dust and mildew and something else. Something older, sadder. She walked through the foyer, her footsteps echoing on hardwood floors. "Caroline," she called. "I'm here, just like you asked." "Where's my daughter?" a voice came from upstairs. "Follow the sound of the water." Victoria's blood ran cold. She climbed the stairs one step at a time. The sound of running water grew louder with each step. At the top of the stairs, a hallway. At the end of the hallway, a door. Light spilling underneath. Victoria walked toward it. She pushed open the door. Caroline Ashford stood in the bathroom, her back to the tub. The water was running, filling the basin. Steam rose from the surface. And sitting on the counter, clutching her stuffed rabbit, was Lily. Mama Lily's face lit up. Mama came. Victoria's heart cracked open. "Hey, baby, Mama's here. Everything's going to be okay. Don't lie to her." Caroline's voice was flat, empty. "Nothing is ever going to be okay. Caroline, please, let me take my daughter. Whatever you want from Grace from me, we can work it out. But Lily doesn't need to be part of this. Lily is the whole point." Caroline turned to face her. "Do you know what it's like to hold your baby in your arms and feel her go cold? Do you know what it's like to watch the light leave her eyes?" Victoria shook her head. "I do." Caroline's face twisted with grief. "I held Emma for 3 hours after she died. I couldn't let her go. I kept thinking if I just held her long enough, she'd start breathing again. She'd come back to me." Tears streamed down her face. "But she didn't come back. She never came back. And I've been dying every day since." Victoria took a small step forward. "I'm so sorry for what you lost. I can't imagine that pain. But taking my daughter won't bring Emma back." "No, but it will make Grace understand. It will make her feel what I felt." "Grace didn't kill your daughter." "Yes, she did." Caroline's voice rose. "She was supposed to be watching. She was supposed to protect her. That was her job. You were supposed to be watching. You were in the room with Emma. You put her in the bath. You walked away. Because I trusted Grace. You were drunk." Caroline went silent. "You were on pills. You were fighting with your husband about the affair. You weren't thinking clearly. You made a mistake." "I didn't make a mistake." Caroline's whole body trembled. "Grace made the mistake. Grace let her die." Victoria took another step. "I talked to Richard. I read the police reports. I know what really happened. Richard is a liar. Richard is the only one telling the truth." Victoria's voice softened. "And I think you know that. I think you've always known. That's why you're so angry. Because the person you really blame is yourself." Caroline stared at her. Her face crumpled. "I left her alone." The words came out in a whisper. "Just for a minute. Just to answer the phone. I didn't think. I wasn't thinking. I know. She was so small." Caroline sobbed. "So helpless. And I left her alone in the water." Victoria reached out slowly, touched Caroline's arm. "It was an accident. A terrible, tragic accident. But blaming Grace won't change what happened. Hurting Lily won't bring Emma back." Caroline looked at Lily, at the little girl clutching her rabbit, watching with wide, frightened eyes. "She looks like her," Caroline whispered. "Same age, same eyes, same little nose. I know. I just wanted to hold her. Just for a little while. Just to remember what it felt like." Victoria's heart broke. "I understand. But she's not Emma. She's Lily. And she needs to go home now." Caroline stood very still for a long moment. Then she reached over and turned off the water. She stepped back from the tub. "Take her." Victoria scooped Lily into her arms and held her tight. The little girl wrapped her arms around her mother's neck and buried her face in her shoulder. "Mama?" Lily's voice was small and scared. "Want to go home? We're going home, baby. We're going home right now." Victoria backed out of the bathroom, never taking her eyes off Caroline. The police met her in the hallway. Behind her, she heard Caroline sink to the floor, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry." Victoria carried her daughter out of that house of ghosts and grief and into the cold Connecticut evening. Lily clung to her the whole way, and Victoria held on like she would never let go, because she wouldn't. Not ever again. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Victoria sat in a hard plastic chair, Lily asleep in her arms, watching the clock on the wall tick past midnight. James paced back and forth in front of the vending machines. He'd worn a path in the linoleum over the past 3 hours. "The doctor said she's fine," James said for the 5th time. "Physically fine, no injuries. I know. Then why are we still here? Because I can't leave. Victoria pressed her cheek against Lily's hair. I can't let go of her. Not yet. James stopped pacing. He looked at his wife and daughter tangled together in that uncomfortable chair, and something in his face softened. He sat down beside them. I almost lost her, Victoria whispered. I almost lost everything. But you didn't. James put his arm around her shoulders. You got her back. You walked into that house alone and you brought her home. Victoria shook her head. I should never have let it get that far. I should have listened to Caroline's warnings. I should have done a better background check on Grace. I should have been more careful. You couldn't have known. I should have known. Victoria's voice cracked. That's my job. To know. To protect. To keep her safe. Lily stirred in her arms, mumbling something in her sleep. Mama, stay Mama's staying baby. Victoria kissed her forehead. Mama's not going anywhere. A nurse approached them, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Sterling. The pediatric psychiatrist would like to speak with you before you take Lily home. Victoria looked at James. He nodded and gently took Lily from her arms. Go, I've got her. Victoria followed the nurse down a long corridor to a small office. A woman in her 50s sat behind a desk, glasses perched on her nose. Mrs. Sterling, I'm Dr. Patricia Coleman. Please sit down. Victoria sat. Your daughter is remarkably resilient. Dr. Coleman folded her hands on the desk. Physically, she's unharmed. Emotionally, she seems to have processed the experience as an adventure rather than a trauma. How is that possible? Children are incredibly adaptable. And from what Lily told us, Mrs. Ashford didn't hurt her or frighten her directly. She gave her toys, let her watch cartoons, fed her snacks. Lily thought she was visiting a friend of the family. Victoria felt sick. She was trying to replace her own daughter. That's my assessment as well. Dr. Coleman removed her glasses. Mrs. Ashford lost her child 2.5 years ago. She never received proper treatment for her grief. Instead, it metastasized into obsession, delusion, and ultimately criminal behavior. What will happen to her? She's been admitted to the psychiatric ward under involuntary commitment. She'll be evaluated over the next 72 hours. After that, a judge will determine whether she poses a continuing threat. Victoria thought about Caroline sobbing on the bathroom floor. Apologizing to a daughter who would never hear her? She's sick. Yes, profoundly so. Grief can do terrible things to the human mind. Victoria was quiet for a moment. What about Lily? What should I do to help her? Just be present. Dr. Coleman's voice softened. Children don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be there, to hold them when they're scared, to listen when they're confused, to love them without conditions. Victoria felt tears building behind her eyes. I haven't been very good at that. You walked into a house with a mentally unstable woman to save your daughter. I'd say you're better at it than you think. Victoria wiped her face. Thank you, doctor. One more thing. Dr. Coleman leaned forward. Lily mentioned someone named Grace several times. She asked if Grace was okay. She seemed very attached. Victoria nodded. Grace is her caregiver. Was her caregiver. I don't know what happens now. Whatever you decide, make sure Lily understands. Children feel abandonment deeply even when they don't have words for it. Victoria thought about Grace's face in the police station. Her tears, her apology. I will. She stood to leave. Mrs. Sterling, Dr. Coleman called after her. You did a brave thing today. Don't forget that. Victoria walked back down the corridor, the doctor's words echoing in her mind. Brave. She didn't feel brave. She felt exhausted, terrified, broken, but also strangely whole. They took Lily home at 2 a.m. The penthouse felt different somehow. Quieter. Safer. Like something had shifted in the walls themselves. Victoria carried Lily to her crib and laid her down gently. The little girl whimpered, but didn't wake. Grace, stay, she mumbled in her sleep. Victoria's throat tightened. We'll talk about Grace tomorrow, baby. Tonight you just sleep. She stood in the nursery doorway watching her daughter breathe and felt James come up behind her. She's going to be okay. I know. Are we going to be okay? Victoria turned to face him. I don't know, but I want to try. James pulled her into his arm. That's enough for now. They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the darkness, listening to their daughter sleep. Morning came too soon. Victoria woke to the sound of Lily's voice. Mama, Mama, where? Grace? Victoria pushed herself up in bed. James was already gone, probably making coffee. She walked to Lily's room. The little girl was standing in her crib, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Where Grace Mama Lily's eyes were wide and worried. Grace, come today? Victoria lifted her out of the crib and sat down in the rocking chair. "Baby, we need to talk about Grace. Grace sick. Grace hurt. No, sweetie, Grace is fine." But Victoria searched for the right words. "Some things happened yesterday. Scary things. And Mama needs to figure out what to do next." Lily's face crumpled. "Want Grace? Love Grace. I know you do, baby." Victoria held her close. "I know. Grace not come back." The question was a knife in Victoria's heart. She thought about everything that had happened. Caroline's accusations, Grace's confession, the security footage, the kidnapping. She thought about Richard Ashford's voice on the phone. Grace Washington is not a murderer. She's a victim. She thought about Grace walking into the police station instead of running. About her tears when Lily said, "I love you." About the way she hummed that old lullaby passed down through generations. Mama Victoria looked down at her daughter's face. Those big, trusting eyes. "I don't know yet, baby, but I promise I'll figure it out." James appeared in the doorway. "There's someone here to see you." Victoria looked up. Who James's expression was complicated. Something between anger and sympathy. Grace. Victoria handed Lily to James and walked to the living room. Grace stood by the window, her back to the room. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like the events of yesterday had taken something from her that she might never get back. She turned when she heard Victoria's footsteps. "I know I shouldn't be here." Her voice was hoarse, raw. "But I needed to see you. I needed to know Lily was okay. She's okay." Victoria stopped a few feet away, confused, scared. "But okay. Thank God." Grace pressed her hand against her chest. "I haven't slept. I keep seeing her face. That woman holding her. You came to warn us. You went to the police instead of running. I almost didn't." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "When Caroline showed me that picture of Lily, I wanted to do whatever she said. Confess to everything. Destroy myself. Anything to keep Lily safe. But you didn't. Because I knew it wouldn't be enough. Caroline would never be satisfied. She'd always want more, and I couldn't protect Lily by giving in to her. You went to the police. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." Grace wiped her face. "Walking away from that car, not knowing if Caroline would hurt Lily while I was gone. Every step felt like I was abandoning her. You weren't. You were saving her." Grace shook her head. "You saved her. You walked into that house. Because you told me where to look." They stood in silence for a moment. "Grace, I need to ask you something. Anything." Victoria took a breath. "Do you want to come back?" Grace's face went blank with shock. "What Lily has been asking for you since she woke up. She loves you. She needs you. After everything that happened, after Caroline, after all the chaos I brought into your life," Victoria stepped closer. "You didn't bring Caroline into our lives. Caroline brought herself. She's been tracking you for 2.5 years, waiting for a chance to hurt you. That's not your fault. But if you hadn't hired me, if I hadn't hired you, my daughter would still be screaming herself to sleep every night." Victoria's voice cracked. "If I hadn't hired you, I would have lost her anyway, just more slowly." Grace covered her face with her hands. "I can't do this again." Her voice was muffled. "I can't love a child and lose her. It almost killed me the first time." "You didn't lose Emma. Caroline lost Emma. It doesn't matter." Grace dropped her hands. "I was there. I was in that house. I heard Vanessa screaming. I ran into that bathroom and saw that baby floating face down in the water. Her whole body shook. I pulled her out. I tried CPR. I breathed into her tiny mouth and pressed on her chest and begged God to bring her back. But she was already gone. She was cold. She was blue. She was gone." Victoria's eyes burned with tears. "And then everyone blamed me. The police, the lawyers, the newspapers. Everyone looked at me like I was a monster, like I had killed her with my own hands. But you didn't. It doesn't matter what really happened. It matters what people believe." Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. "And people will always believe the worst about someone like me. Someone like you, a black woman who was supposed to be caring for a rich white baby." Grace looked at Victoria. "That's how the story reads. That's what people see. The negligent nanny, the careless maid, the poor black girl who couldn't be trusted." Victoria felt something cold move through her chest. "Is that what you think I see? I don't know." Grace met her eyes. "Is it?" The question hung between them. Victoria thought about her first impression of Grace. Her assumptions, her prejudices. The way she'd been surprised when Grace walked through the door. She thought about all the things she'd never examined. The beliefs she'd inherited. The biases she'd never questioned. "I see a woman who saved my daughter." Victoria's voice was steady. "I see someone who loved Lily when I couldn't figure out how. I see a person who walked through hell and came out the other side still capable of kindness. She stepped closer. I don't know what other people see, but I know what I see, and I see someone I want in my daughter's life. Grace's tears spilled over. How can you trust me after everything because my daughter trusts you? And right now, that's the only thing I'm certain of. Grace stood very still. What about your husband? He's learning to trust you too. What about Caroline? What if she gets out? Then we deal with it, together. And what about you? Grace's voice broke. What if you change your mind? What if you decide I'm too much risk? Victoria reached out and took Grace's hands. 2 days ago, I was ready to send my daughter away because I couldn't handle her. I was drowning in my own fear and failure. And you showed me a different way. You showed me that love isn't about control. It's about presence. She squeezed Grace's hands. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to push you away. I'm going to fight for you the way you fought for Lily. Grace sobbed, a raw, broken sound. I don't deserve this. Yes, you do. Victoria pulled her into a hug. You deserve kindness. You deserve peace. You deserve a family. Grace held on tight. I don't know how to have a family. My grandmother died. Died 3 years ago. I've been alone ever since. You're not alone anymore. They stood there for a long time, two women who'd found each other in the wreckage of their own fears. Finally, Grace pulled back. I should go. You need time with Lily, with James. Stay for breakfast. Grace hesitated. Lily's been asking for you. Victoria smiled through her tears. And I make terrible pancakes. She needs someone who knows what they're doing. Grace laughed, a small surprise sound. You want me to cook breakfast? I want you to be part of our family, however that looks, whatever that means. Grace wiped her face. Okay. She nodded slowly. Okay? They walked to the kitchen together. James was at the stove, burning something. Lily was in her high chair, banging a spoon against the tray. When Lily saw Grace, her whole face transformed. Grace! Grace came back. She reached out with both arms, straining against the chair. Grace crossed the room and lifted her out. Lily wrapped her arms around Grace's neck and held on tight. Missed you, Grace. Missed you so much. I missed you too, sweet girl. Grace kissed her forehead. I missed you so much. James watched them for a moment. Then he looked at Victoria. So she's staying? She's staying. James nodded slowly. He turned off the stove and stepped away from his failed breakfast attempt. Good. He looked at Grace. I'm not good at this, at trusting people, at letting people in. I understand, but Victoria trusts you, and Lily loves you, so I'm going to try. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. James. He almost smiled. If you're going to be family, you should probably call me James. Grace's eyes glistened. Thank you, James. Lily looked between all the adults, confused by the serious atmosphere. Everyone happy now. Victoria laughed. It came from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere she hadn't accessed in years. Yes, baby, everyone's happy now. Grace, stay forever. Grace looked at Victoria. Victoria nodded. I'm going to stay as long as you want me to, forever, Lily said firmly. Want forever? Grace held her close. Then forever it is. They made breakfast together. Pancakes that actually turned out edible. Fresh fruit. Orange juice. Lily ate everything, chattering happily about her adventure, about the nice lady who gave her toys, about how Mama came to find her. She didn't seem traumatized. She seemed like a child who'd had a strange experience and was already processing it into memory. Dr. Coleman was right. Children were resilient. After breakfast, Grace took Lily to the playroom. Victoria could hear them singing together. That same soft lullaby. That same wordless melody. James came up behind her. You did the right thing. I know. She could have left. She could have disappeared. Nobody would have blamed her. Victoria turned to face him. But she didn't. She walked into a police station and told them everything. She risked her freedom to help us find Lily. She's not what I expected. No, she's better. James was quiet for a moment. I talked to my mother this morning. Victoria tensed. Eleanor Sterling was the last person she wanted to deal with right now. She heard about what happened. It's all over the news. Of course it is. She wanted to come over, offer support. Victoria laughed bitterly. Eleanor Sterling doesn't offer support. She offers criticism disguised as concern. I told her no. James's voice was firm. I told her we were handling things our own way, that we didn't need her input. Victoria stared at him. You told your mother no. I told her that our family, our daughter, our choices were none of her business. James met her eyes. I should have done it years ago. What did she say? She hung up on me. Victoria felt something shift in her chest, some old wound starting to heal, Thank you. Don't thank me. I should have protected you from her a long time ago. I should have protected us. He reached for her hand. I'm sorry. For the hotel room. For talking about sending Lily away. For not being here when you needed me. James, let me finish. He squeezed her hand. I've been running from this family instead of fighting for it. I've been using work as an excuse to avoid the hard parts. But I don't want to do that anymore. What do you want? I want to be Lily's father. Really be her father. Not just the guy who pays the bills and shows up for bedtime occasionally. Victoria felt tears building again. And I want to be your husband, not just your partner. Your husband, the person you turn to when things are hard, the person who catches you when you fall. I want that too, Victoria whispered. Then let's start over. James pulled her close. Let's be the family we always should have been. Victoria buried her face in his shoulder. From the playroom, she heard Lily laughing, heard Grace's voice warm and gentle. Okay, she said. Let's start over. The weeks that followed were not easy. The media descended on them. Reporters camped outside the building. Headlines screamed. What about the kidnapping, about Caroline Ashford, about the mysterious black nanny who was somehow at the center of everything? Grace stayed out of sight. Victoria's lawyers handled the press. James took a leave of absence from work. They became a fortress. Impenetrable. United. Lily thrived. She slept through the night. She ate without battles. She spoke in longer sentences every day, and slowly she learned to accept Victoria the way she'd always accepted Grace. Mama sing, Lily asked one evening at bedtime. Victoria hesitated. She didn't know the lullaby. Not all of it. Grace appeared in the doorway. I can teach you. They stood together beside Lily's crib. Grace hummed the melody. Victoria tried to follow. It took 3 nights before Victoria could do it alone, before the song felt natural in her mouth. On the 4th night, she sang Lily to sleep by herself. Pretty Mama. Lily's eyes drifted closed. Love Mama's song. Victoria stood there long after Lily fell asleep, listening to her breathe, feeling like a mother for the first time in her daughter's life. Caroline Ashford was committed to a long-term psychiatric facility. Her family's lawyers tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She'd kidnapped a child. She'd threatened violence. She'd confessed to years of stalking and harassment. She would be getting treatment, not prison, but she would not be getting out anytime soon. Richard Ashford called Victoria a week after the commitment. I want to apologize. His voice was heavy with guilt. I should have stopped her years ago. I knew she was unstable. I knew she blamed Grace, but I was too caught up in my own grief to see how dangerous she'd become. You couldn't have known she'd do something like this. Yes, I could have. Richard's voice broke. I saw the signs, the obsession, the tracking, the way she talked about Grace. I told myself she'd get better, that time would heal her. He paused. But some wounds don't heal, they just fester. Victoria thought about her own wounds, the ones she'd been carrying for years. What will you do now? Try to make amends. I'm setting up a fund in Emma's name, scholarships for children in foster care. I want something good to come from all this tragedy. That sounds like a beautiful way to honor her. It's not enough. It will never be enough, but it's something. They talked for a few more minutes, then Richard said goodbye. Victoria hung up and looked at the photo on her desk. Lily laughing in Grace's arms. Something good had come from tragedy. It had just taken a long time to find it. 3 months after the kidnapping, Victoria reduced her hours at Goldman Sachs. She'd expected resistance, arguments, pressure to stay. Instead, her managing director simply nodded. Family comes first, he said. The work will be here when you're ready. She walked out of that meeting feeling lighter than she had in years. James was waiting for her in the lobby. How did it go? They understood. Of course they did. He took her hand. You're the best they have. They'd be stupid to lose you. Victoria laughed. When did you become my cheerleader? When I remembered that being your partner means actually being on your team. They walked home together through the city, past the shops and the restaurants and the crowds of people rushing to nowhere. Victoria thought about how much had changed in 3 months. She thought about Lily's laughter, Grace's humming, James's hand in hers. She thought about all the things she'd been afraid of, all the things she'd been running from, and she realized she wasn't running anymore. She was home. That evening they had dinner together, all 4 of them. Grace had officially moved into the guest room. It made more sense than commuting from Harlem, and Lily was happier having her close. Victoria had worried about boundaries, about roles, about what it meant to have another woman living in her home caring for her child, but somehow they'd found a balance. Grace was not replacing Victoria. She was supporting her. And Victoria was learning from Grace. Learning patience. Learning presence. Learning how to love without fear. Mama, look. Lily held up a drawing. Drew our family. Victoria looked at the picture. 4 figures with wild crayon hair. 1 tall one, medium, 1 small one with brown skin and a wide smile. That's beautiful, baby. Who is everyone? Lily pointed. That's Dada. That's Mama. That's me. And that's Grace. She looked up with serious eyes. Grace's family too, right? Victoria looked at Grace. Grace's eyes were glistening. Yes, baby. Victoria pulled Lily onto her lap. Grace's family too. Lily nodded, satisfied. Good. Love our family. She went back to drawing. Victoria looked at James. He was smiling. She looked at Grace. Grace was crying and laughing at the same time. She looked at her daughter, happy, healthy, whole, and she thought, this is what I was so afraid of. This love, this connection, this messy, imperfect, beautiful family, this was everything. That night, after Lily was asleep, Victoria found Grace on the balcony. The city sparkled below them, a million lights against the darkness. Beautiful night. Grace nodded. I used to dream about views like this when I was a kid. Used to think only special people got to see the world from up high. You are special. Grace shook her head. I'm just a woman who got lucky, after 2.5 years of being unlucky. Victoria stood beside her. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I first saw you in the lobby, I made assumptions about who you were, what you were capable of. I looked at your clothes, your bag, the color of your skin, and I thought I knew your story. I'm used to that. That's what makes it worse. Victoria's voice tightened. You're used to it. You've had to be. And I was just another person in a long line of people who judged you without knowing you. Grace was quiet. I'm sorry, Victoria said. For all the assumptions, for all the doubts, for every moment I made you feel like you had to prove yourself in my home. Grace turned to face her. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed me when everyone else believed Caroline? She reached out and took Victoria's hand. You walked into that house to save your daughter, and then you came back and opened your family to me. She squeezed Victoria's fingers. That's not judgment. That's grace. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. That's your name. Grace laughed softly. My grandmother said she named me Grace because I was her second chance. Her gift from God. She said I was put on this earth to bring grace to others. I think she was right. They stood together on the balcony looking out at the city. 2 women from different worlds. United by a child. Transformed by love. Tomorrow Lily would wake up and ask for pancakes. James would burn something on the stove. Grace would hum her grandmother's lullaby. And Victoria would be there. Present, available, ready, not perfect, but there. And that was enough. That was everything. 6 months after the kidnapping, on a bright Saturday morning in October, Lily turned 3 years old. Victoria woke early to the sound of small feet running down the hallway. Mama Lily burst through the bedroom door and launched herself onto the bed. Birthday, Lily's birthday! Victoria caught her mid-leap and pulled her close. Happy birthday, baby girl. 3 whole years old. Big girl now. Lily's face was flushed with excitement. Grace said big girls get special breakfast. Did she now pancakes with faces and strawberries for eyes? James groaned beside them, pulling a pillow over his head. It's 6 in the morning, princess. Birthday doesn't wait, Dada. Lily bounced on the mattress. Get up, get up, get up. Victoria laughed. A real laugh. Deep and free. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have recognized this moment. Wouldn't have believed it possible. Her daughter, happy, excited, bouncing on her parents' bed like every other 3-year-old in the world. Normal. Finally, blessedly normal. Come on, sleepyhead. Victoria nudged James. Birthday doesn't wait. James emerged from under the pillow, his hair standing in all directions. I'm being attacked by morning people. Send help. Lily giggled and threw herself on top of him. No help, Dada. Only birthday. They made their way to the kitchen where Grace was already working at the stove. She'd been up since 5, Victoria knew. Preparing, planning, making everything perfect for the little girl who had become the center of all their lives. Grace. Lily ran to her and wrapped her arms around Grace's legs. Mama said pancakes with faces. That's right, sweet girl. Grace lifted her onto her hip. I'm making one that looks just like you. Big smile, curly hair, beautiful brown eyes. Lily clapped her hands. Victoria stood in the doorway watching. 6 months. 6 months since Caroline Ashford had tried to destroy everything. 6 months since Victoria had walked into that house in Greenwich, not knowing if she would walk out again. 6 months since their family had been broken apart and put back together in a completely new shape. It looked different now, felt different, better. James came up behind her and wrapped his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How much has changed?" "Good changes." Victoria watched Lily help Grace pour batter onto the griddle. Watched her daughter's face light up as the pancake bubbled and transformed. The best changes. The party started at noon. Victoria had invited everyone, her colleagues from Goldman Sachs, James's business partners, neighbors from the building, families from the mommy group she'd finally joined. But the most important guests arrived early. Grace's grandmother's oldest friend, Miss Ruth, took the train from Harlem. She was 82 years old, sharp as a tack, and she'd known Grace since before Grace was born. "Let me see this baby girl," she demanded as soon as she walked through the door. "The one my Grace has been telling me about." Lily hid behind Victoria's legs, suddenly shy. "It's okay, baby. This is Miss Ruth. She's Grace's family." Lily peeked out. "You're Grace's grandma." Miss Ruth laughed. "Not quite sugar, but close enough." She knelt down slowly, her old knees protesting. "I heard you like to sing." "That true?" Lily nodded. "You know the song Grace sings?" "The one with no words." Lily nodded again, more enthusiastically. "My mama taught that song to Grace's grandmama, and she taught it to Grace's mama, and she taught it to Grace." Miss Ruth's eyes glistened. "It's been in our family for over 100 years. Came all the way from Alabama. That's a long way," Lily said seriously. "Sure is, baby. Sure is." Miss Ruth reached out and touched Lily's cheek. "And now Grace is teaching it to you. That makes you part of our family too." Lily's face transformed. "Really? Really?" Lily threw her arms around Miss Ruth's neck. "I'm part of Grace's family." Miss Ruth held her tight, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Yes, you are, baby. Yes, you are." Victoria watched them embrace and felt something crack open in her chest. Not pain, not grief, something deeper, something that felt like belonging. Grace appeared beside her. Miss Ruth never had children of her own. She helped raise me after my grandmother got sick. She's been alone for a long time. "Not anymore," Victoria said quietly. Grace wiped her eyes. "No, not anymore." The party filled the penthouse with noise and laughter. Lily ran from guest to guest, showing off her new toys, her birthday crown, her special dress. She was the center of attention and loving every minute of it. Victoria circulated through the room, playing hostess, making small talk, doing all the things she'd done at 100 events before. But this was different. This wasn't a networking opportunity. This wasn't a chance to advance her career or make connections. This was a celebration of her daughter, of her family, of everything they'd survived. Her mother arrived at 2 o'clock. Eleanor Sterling walked through the door in a cloud of expensive perfume and judgment, her eyes sweeping the room like a queen surveying her domain. Victoria braced herself. "Victoria!" Eleanor air-kissed her daughter's cheeks. "Quite the gathering. Lily invited everyone she knows. She's very excited. I can see that." Eleanor's gaze landed on Grace, who was helping Lily open a present. "Who is that woman that's Grace?" "Lily's caregiver." "Ah, the one from the news." Victoria's spine stiffened. "Yes, the one from the news." Eleanor studied Grace with cool, assessing eyes. "She's very good with the child. She's family." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Family? That's a rather strong word for the help." Something inside Victoria snapped. "She's not the help, Mother. She's the woman who saved my daughter's life. She's the woman who taught me how to be a mother. She's more family to us than you've ever been." Eleanor's face went pale. "Victoria, I don't think you should speak to me that way. No, I don't think I should have let you speak to me the way you have for 35 years. Victoria's voice was steady but fierce. "Criticizing everything I do, judging every choice I make, making me feel like nothing I accomplish will ever be good enough. I only wanted what was best for you. You wanted what was best for you. What made you look good? What gave you bragging rights at the country club?" Victoria stepped closer. "But I'm done trying to earn your approval. I have a daughter who loves me, a husband who supports me, a family that actually shows up when it matters." She looked her mother in the eye. "If you want to be part of that family, you can start by treating everyone in this room with respect, including Grace, especially Grace." Eleanor stood frozen, her mouth opened and closed. "I see." Her voice was ice. "Well, I suppose I should be going." "That's your choice." Eleanor gathered her coat and bag. She walked toward the door, then stopped. She turned back to Victoria. Your father would have liked her? What, Grace? Eleanor's voice softened slightly. He always said the measure of a person wasn't what they had, but how they treated others. She treats your daughter like she's precious. Victoria felt tears building. She is precious. I know. Eleanor hesitated. I've made mistakes, Victoria, many of them. Perhaps too many to fix. You can try. They looked at each other across the room. Decades of hurt and disappointment hanging between them. Then Eleanor did something she hadn't done since Victoria was a child. She crossed the room and hugged her. Happy birthday to my granddaughter, she whispered, and happy birthday to the mother you've become. She pulled back, wiped her eyes quickly, and walked out without another word. Victoria stood stunned. James appeared beside her. Did your mother just hug you? I think so. Is she okay? Did someone drug her? Victoria laughed through her tears. I think she might be trying. Miracles do happen. He pulled her close. Yes. Victoria looked around the room at her family, her friends, her daughter. They really do. The party wound down as the afternoon shadows lengthened. Guests said their goodbyes. Lily crashed hard after too much cake and excitement. Victoria carried her to her room and laid her in her big girl bed. The crib had been retired last month, another milestone in a year full of them. Good birthday, Mama. Lily's eyes were already closing. The best birthday. Love you. I love you too, baby. So much. Victoria sang the lullaby. The one Grace had taught her, the one that had traveled from Alabama to Harlem to this penthouse on the Upper East Side. Lily was asleep before the melody ended. Victoria sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughter breathe. 3 years old. It had taken 3 years, but they'd finally figured out how to be a family. She heard a soft knock and turned to see Grace in the doorway. She's out. Like a light. Grace smiled. Big day. The biggest. They walked to the living room together. James was on the couch, surrounded by wrapping paper and discarded ribbons. I'm too old for children's parties, he groaned. You're 38. Exactly. Ancient. Grace laughed and started gathering the debris. Victoria watched her work. Efficient, capable, part of their lives in a way that felt as natural as breathing. Grace. Yes, can we talk? All of us? Grace paused. She looked at James, then back at Victoria. Is something wrong? No. Victoria sat down across from them. Something's right. I wanted to tell you both. James pushed himself upright, suddenly alert. Tell us what I got a call from my doctor yesterday. Victoria's heart pounded. She hadn't planned to do this today. But watching Lily blow out her candles, watching their family celebrate together, she'd known she couldn't wait any longer. Grace sat down slowly. Her face had gone pale. Are you okay? I'm fine. Victoria reached for James's hand. Better than fine. She took a breath. I'm pregnant. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then James made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob and pulled her into his arms. Pregnant. Are you serious? How in the usual way? Victoria laughed through her tears. About 8 weeks ago. 8 weeks! James pulled back to look at her. You've known for 8 weeks, I've known for 3 days. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to wait until Lily's birthday. She looked at Grace. Grace hadn't moved. Her face was unreadable. Grace, Victoria's voice wavered. Say something. Grace stood up abruptly. Congratulations! Her voice was tight. That's wonderful news. She walked toward the kitchen. Victoria followed her. Grace, wait. Grace stopped with her back to Victoria. Her shoulders were shaking. I'm sorry. I just need a minute. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Grace turned around. Her face was wet with tears. Everything's right. That's the problem. I don't understand. You're having a baby. Grace's voice broke. A real baby. Your own baby. You're going to be a family. A real family. We already are a real family. No, Grace shook her head. I'm the nanny, the caregiver, the woman you hired to help with your difficult daughter, and now you're having another child, and you won't need me anymore. Victoria felt like she'd been slapped. Is that what you think? It's what always happens? Grace wiped her face. Families hire someone to help with one child. Then they have another, and suddenly the hired help is too expensive, too complicated, too much. Grace, look at me. Grace lifted her eyes. You are not hired help. Victoria's voice was fierce. You are family. Real family. Nothing about this baby changes that. But you'll have 2 children now, your own children. Lily is my own child. And you are her Grace. And this baby, Victoria, touched her stomach. Will be your baby too, if you want." Grace stared at her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to be part of this baby's life, the same way you're part of Lily's life. I'm saying that when this child is born, you'll be in the delivery room holding my hand if you want to be." Victoria stepped closer. "I'm saying that this family doesn't work without you, that James and I talked about it and we want you to stay, not as an employee, as an aunt, as a godmother, as whatever you want to be." Grace's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, sobbing. Victoria knelt beside her. "Say something." "I can't." Grace shook her head. "I can't be a godmother. I can't be an aunt. I'm nobody. I'm just Grace. You're not nobody. You're the woman who saved us. I didn't save anyone. You saved Lily. You saved my marriage. You saved me." Victoria took Grace's hands. "When I met you, I was drowning. I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know how to be anything except successful at work." Grace looked up. "You taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect, that families don't have to match, that sometimes the people who hurt the most are the ones who heal the best." Victoria squeezed her hands. "Please stay, not because I need a babysitter, because I need you." Grace stared at her for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around Victoria and held on tight. "Okay." Her voice was muffled against Victoria's shoulder. "Okay." They stayed like that for a long time. James found them on the kitchen floor and joined them without a word. Three people who'd found each other by accident and chosen to become a family on purpose. The baby arrived in April. A boy. They named him Marcus after Grace's grandfather. Victoria labored for 14 hours. James held one hand, Grace held the other. When Marcus finally came into the world screaming his displeasure at the bright lights and cold air, Grace was the first to hold him after Victoria. "He's beautiful." Grace cradled him like he was made of glass. "He's so beautiful. He looks like an angry potato," James said. "James?" Victoria glared at him. "A beautiful angry potato." Grace laughed through her tears. Lily was brought in an hour later. She'd been staying with Miss Ruth, waiting anxiously for news. Baby brother Lily peered at the bundle in Grace's arms. "That's my baby brother. That's him." Victoria smiled. "His name is Marcus." "Marcus." Lily tested the word. "Hi, Marcus. I'm Lily. I'm your big sister." She leaned in and kissed his forehead. "I'm going to teach you everything, how to build towers, how to draw, how to sing Grace's song." Grace's eyes overflowed. The song, the one that had traveled through generations, the one that had brought them all together. "Will you teach him?" Victoria asked Grace. "The way you taught me." Grace looked down at Marcus, at this tiny, perfect boy who carried her grandfather's name. "Every night?" She kissed his head. "Every single night." The months that followed were chaotic and exhausting and the happiest of Victoria's life. Marcus was an easy baby, nothing like Lily had been. He slept through the night at 3 months. He smiled at everyone. He rarely cried. Grace said it was because he knew he was loved from the start. Victoria thought she might be right. Lily took her role as big sister seriously, too seriously sometimes. "Marcus is crying," she announced one morning, marching into Victoria's office. "I tried to make him stop, but he won't listen." Victoria looked up from her laptop. "Babies don't really listen, sweetheart." "Then how do you make them stop?" "Usually you feed them, or change them, or hold them." Lily thought about this. "That's a lot of work." "Yes, it is." "Is that why you have—" Grace Victoria smiled. "I have Grace because she's family, not because she does work. But she helps with Marcus. She helps with all of us, including me." Lily nodded slowly. "I love Grace." "I know you do, baby. So do I." Lily climbed into Victoria's lap. "Mama, yes." Remember when I used to scream all the time? Victoria's heart clenched. She tried not to think about those days too often. "I remember. I don't remember why I did that." Lily looked up at her. "Was I bad?" "No, sweetheart." Victoria pulled her close. "You weren't bad. You were hurting. You just didn't have the words to tell us." "But I have words now. You do, and I don't scream anymore." "No, you don't." Lily was quiet for a moment. Is that because of Grace? Victoria thought about the question. Really thought about it. It's because of all of us. Grace helped. Daddy helped. I learned how to help. And you learned how to let us. Oh, Lily considered this. So we all fixed each other. Victoria felt tears building. Yes, baby, we all fixed each other. Lily nodded, satisfied with this answer. Good. I like being fixed. She slid off Victoria's lap and ran to find Grace. Victoria sat alone in her office thinking about all the ways they'd broken and mended and broken again. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was real, and that was so much better. 2 years later, on a warm September evening, Grace came home with news. She walked through the door, glowing in a way Victoria had never seen before. "What happened?" Victoria looked up from where she was helping Lily with homework. "You look different. I met someone." Victoria set down Lily's pencil. "What? His name is David. He's a teacher at the school where Marcus goes for music class. We've been talking for months, but today he asked me to dinner." "Grace, that's wonderful." Is it Grace's face clouded? "I haven't dated anyone since before everything happened. I don't know if I remember how." Victoria stood and crossed to her. "You remember how to love. That's all dating really is. What if he finds out about my past, about the accusations, then he'll know what you survived, and if he can't handle that, he doesn't deserve you." Grace bit her lip. "I'm scared." "I know." Victoria took her hands. "But you face scarier things than a dinner date." Grace laughed nervously. "Will you help me figure out what to wear? I thought you'd never ask." They spent the next hour in Grace's room trying on outfits, debating hairstyles, acting like teenage girls before prom. Lily wanted to help. "Wear the blue one," she declared. "It makes your eyes sparkle." Grace looked at herself in the mirror. She was 40 now. Lines around her eyes. Gray beginning to thread through her hair. But she was beautiful. Not despite what she'd been through. Because of it. "You look perfect," Victoria said. Grace turned to face her. "I never thought I'd have this again. A home, a family, someone who wanted to take me to dinner. You deserve all of it. Because of you." Grace's eyes glistened. "None of this would exist without you. That's not true." Victoria shook her head. "You built this. All I did was open the door." They hugged. "Go," Victoria whispered. "Have fun. Fall in love. Be happy." Grace pulled back and smiled. "I already am happy. This is just extra." She grabbed her purse and walked out. Victoria watched her go with tears in her eyes. "Is Grace going on a date?" Lily asked. "Yes, she is. Is she going to get married? I don't know, baby. Maybe someday." Lily thought about this. If she gets married, will she still be our Grace? Victoria knelt down to Lily's level. Grace will always be our Grace, no matter what. Family doesn't stop being family just because life changes. Lily nodded. "Good, because I need her forever." Victoria pulled her daughter close. "So do I, baby. So do I." Grace and David got married the following spring. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends, held in the penthouse where so much healing had happened. Lily was the flower girl. Marcus was the ring bearer, though at 3 years old, he mostly just wandered around showing everyone his dinosaur toy. Victoria stood beside Grace as her matron of honor. Nervous, she whispered as the music began. "Terrified." Grace smiled. But the good kind of terrified. David waited at the altar. His eyes shone when he saw Grace walking toward him. He was a good man, kind, patient. He'd listened to Grace's whole story and hadn't flinched. Some people run from broken things, he'd told Victoria. I'd rather be the one who helps put them back together. The minister spoke about love and commitment and family. Victoria thought about her own journey, the screaming child she couldn't reach, the marriage that almost collapsed, the woman who'd walked through her door and changed everything. She thought about Caroline Ashford still in the psychiatric facility, slowly healing from her own grief. She thought about Emma, the baby who'd died, whose name had started this whole chain of events. She thought about all the ways tragedy could become triumph if you let it. "Do you take this woman?" the minister asked. "I do," David said. "And do you take this man?" Grace looked at Victoria. Just for a moment. A glance full of everything they'd shared. Then she turned back to David. "I do." They kissed. Everyone cheered. Lily threw flowers in the air. Marcus roared like a dinosaur, and Victoria felt something settle in her chest, something that had been unsettled for a very long time. Peace. Finally. Peace. Grace moved into David's apartment in Brooklyn, but she came to the penthouse every day. She was still Lily's Grace. Still Marcus's Grace. Still part of everything important. Some things changed. Some things stayed the same. Victoria cut her hours at Goldman Sachs again. Then finally on Lily's 7th birthday, she quit altogether. She started consulting instead, working from home, being present. James sold his startup for more money than they'd ever need, and became the parent who did school pickup, who made doctor's appointments, who knew the names of all the teachers. They weren't perfect parents, but they were there, and that made all the difference. On the 10th anniversary of the day Grace had walked through their door, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Grace and David, Victoria and James. Lily, now 12, beautiful and confident, and so much like her mother. Marcus, 8, gentle and creative, and so much like Grace. Miss Ruth, 92 now, but still sharp as ever. And a new addition baby, Rose David and Grace's daughter, born 6 months earlier. Victoria held Rose while Grace made dinner. "She's gorgeous," she said. "She looks just like you. She has David's stubbornness. She'll need it. Life requires stubbornness." Grace laughed and wiped her hands on a towel. "Can you believe it's been 10 years? No." Victoria shook her head. "It feels like yesterday. It feels like forever." Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mom, Marcus won't stop touching my stuff. That's what brothers do. It's annoying." "That's also what brothers do." Lily huffed dramatically and flounced away. Grace watched her go. "She's so grown up. Too grown up. Where did my baby go?" "She's still in there." Grace smiled. "Just with more attitude." Victoria laughed. They worked together in comfortable silence. Two women who'd become sisters. Two families who'd become one. Grace, Victoria said after a while, "Yes, thank you. For what? For everything. For showing up that day. For not giving up on us. For teaching me how to be a mother." Grace set down her spoon and turned to face her. "You taught yourself. I just helped you see what was already there." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I love you. You know that, right?" Grace crossed the kitchen and pulled her into a hug. "I know. I love you too." They held each other for a long moment. Mama Marcus yelled from the other room. "Lily's being mean. I'm not being mean," Lily shouted back. "I'm being honest." Grace and Victoria pulled apart, laughing. "Some things never change," Grace said. "Thank God." They walked into the living room together. The whole family was there, loud and chaotic and imperfect and beautiful. Lily was arguing with Marcus. David was trying to mediate. James was pretending to read but actually watching the drama unfold. Miss Ruth was telling baby Rose about the old days in Alabama, and in the middle of it all, Grace started to hum. That old melody, the one with no words. The one that had traveled through generations from slavery to freedom, from Alabama to Harlem to Manhattan. Lily stopped arguing. Marcus stopped complaining. Even baby Rose went quiet. One by one, they all began to hum along. Victoria closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. She thought about all the ways this moment could have never happened. If she'd listened to Caroline, if she'd fired Grace that first day, if she'd kept hiding in her work, her fear, her failure. But she hadn't. She'd chosen differently. She'd chosen love, and love had chosen her back. The song ended. The room was quiet. Then Lily said, "I'm hungry." Everyone laughed. The moment broke, but it didn't shatter. It just opened up to make room for the next moment. And the next, and the next. That's what family was, Victoria realized. Not a destination, a journey, not a fixed point, a flowing river, always changing, always growing, always there. James came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Happy anniversary," he whispered. "It's not our anniversary. It's the anniversary of when we became us, the real us, all of us." Victoria leaned back against him. "I love who we became. So do I." She looked around the room at her family, her impossible, improbable, perfect family. Grace caught her eye and smiled. Victoria smiled back, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Some stories end with happily ever after. This story ended with something better. Something real. A family built not from blood, but from choice. A love forged not in perfection, but in forgiveness. A future created not by avoiding pain, but by walking through it. Together, the millionaire baby who screamed at every nanny had grown into a beautiful young woman. The black maid who carried generations of sorrow had found her joy. And the mother who didn't know how to love had learned the most important lesson of all. That love isn't something you're born knowing. It's something you choose, every day, in every moment, with every breath. And when you choose it when you really choose it, it changes everything. It changed Victoria. It changed Grace. It changed a family that never should have existed. And it proved once and for all that the most powerful force in the universe isn't money or status or success. It's grace. Simple, ordinary, extraordinary grace. The kind that saves. The kind that heals. The kind that makes broken things whole again. That's where this story ends. Not with a period, with a promise. That no matter how dark the night morning always comes. That no matter how deep the wound healing is possible. That no matter how impossible it seems, love finds a way. Always. Every single time. Love finds a way.